heavy rains, unpredictable challenges, and knowing that everything moving forward literally rests on getting this foundation correct. No pressure, right? In this part of the build, we're taking on something completely new, digging and pouring a concrete pier foundation for our A-frame home. With no prior experience, a couple of setbacks along the way, and a hard deadline closing in fast, this is make or break for the build. Have we got what it takes? Stick around to see how it all plays out. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you want to follow along on more of this home building journey. Let's get started. We started this project full of excitement and optimism, but as we marked out where the foundation would go, reality set in, and with it, doubt. Did we really know enough to pull this off? Nicole was pushing for progress, eager to move forward, while I kept pumping the brakes, convinced we needed just a little more research. As summer faded into fall and the cold winds of winter arrived, progress came to a complete halt. The following summer, with a newfound sense of purpose and determination, we hit the ground running, ready and eager to dig this foundation. But before we could dig, we needed to get these string lines just right. Laying them out wasn't just about marking the trenches, it was crucial to making sure the foundation stayed square. If we didn't get this right, we'd be facing a lot more headaches down the road. It has begun. Digging the foundation hole trench has finally started. Here I go into the hole. As Nicole worked her way down, digging out each trench with the excavator, I climbed down into the trenches to ensure that we hit the right depth. Here I am in my hole, in my trench. It's actually kind of cool down here. We got a nice mixture of sand and clay that we're dealing with. This really was a team effort. We needed to dig 4 feet down to get below the frost line. But, of course, in the first corner, we hit groundwater just below that 4-foot mark. Talk about digging up trouble. Oh shit, we dug a little too deep. We didn't know it at the time, but this little puddle of water was a sign of one of the biggest hurdles we would face during this project. Moment of truth. Did the trenches fill with water? That one, it's got some water where we had water. Little puddle. The one I knew would be fine is fine. Just a little puddle. And the one that not surprised that there's water in this one because it's all clay. It's the 5th day of our work here to put our foundation in. We had a bunch of rain last night, which unfortunately led to a little bit of flooding in one of our trenches. It's not unexpected, but it is unwanted, a pain in the butt, if you will. The sandy trenches, the trenches with mostly sand, are fine. The one that had a lot more clay has a lot more water. So we're pumping that out. We bought all our rebar that are going in our footings and our forms. So we're cutting that. With the rebar cut, it was time to check back in on the trenches. Unfortunately, as the pump lowered the water level in the trench, it started to clog up more. With more rain in the forecast, we had to make a plan to deal with this water. My solution? Use my knowledge of rope systems to suspend a giant tarp over the trenches, angling the tarp so water would run off away from instead of into the trenches. When the last rope was tightened and the tarp was stretched as tight as possible without ripping it, I was hopeful that this would work. That is, as long as it didn't rain too hard. You see, too much rain all at once, well, that might lead to an epic failure of my new tarp city. When I pulled up to the site the following morning, it took me a minute to process what I was looking at. So as I first pulled up to check on Tarp City, I noticed the first problem. This line was way too low. And then as I pull up further, I see that the tarps have fallen into the trenches, which means that those are probably filled with water. And then I see that the ladder has been exposed, which means the tarp broke open. The tarp had ripped under the weight of the water, and I was left with little swimming pools in 2 of the 3 trenches. Tarp City had failed. But this tarp failure had a silver lining, which was that it was much easier to pump the clean rainwater out of the newly formed swimming pool than it was to pump it out of the muddy, sandy trench bottom. With our concrete delivery just days away, and a lucky but brief break in the weather, we decided that fiddling with tarps wasn't the best use of time. Instead, we had to get that first trench, the one that we hit groundwater in, set with our footers and forms and backfilled as quickly as possible. We carefully positioned each footer into the trench, ensuring they were level and spaced out evenly, checking and double checking as we went. So besides checking to make sure these are still pretty level, I'm looking to make sure the forms aren't getting deformed, which they so far are looking good. We got a few hours before the heavy rain starts. We're gonna try to get these buried enough to not have them get all messed up by the rain. No matter how much Mother Nature tried to slow us down, we kept moving forward. We didn't really have a choice. The concrete was purchased, and we still had to attach the forms and backfill everything. But thanks to the rain delays, we had to return the excavator. So now, everything had to be done by hand. It is currently Monday, and we are having our concrete delivered on Wednesday. We have to fill in all these trenches. We were doing it by hand. We got all our footers in, filling the trenches by hand, but now we're getting a skid steer for this last bit because it's a lot of dirt to move by hand. So my job today is getting these attached to our footers. It's probably going to be easier said than done. day has arrived for concrete to be poured. Wow, this is quite the look I got going here. We were just talking about how we're both a little bit nervous because we've never done this before, so we don't know how it's gonna go. But I think we've prepared pretty well. And I mean, with a look like this, you can't go wrong. Just waiting for the concrete man. We got all... We're thirsty for concrete, they say. There was points last night where I didn't know if we'd finish because our skid steer that we rented kept breaking down. But we did it. Even got some fancy gravel because we didn't know if it was gonna rain. And this area gets real muddy. The truck has arrived. The day was finally here, and while we had no idea what to expect, we were as prepared as we could be. We laid out all the rebar for each form and gathered every supply we thought we'd need. We even had a game plan ready to go, but as soon as the concrete started flying down the chute, all our plans went straight out the window. Nicole took charge, funneling the concrete into each form, while I scrambled behind her with the concrete vibrator, making sure to remove any air bubbles before adding the rebar. Everything was happening so fast that it felt like a blur. I only managed to film one short clip the whole time. But when the last form was filled, a huge wave of relief and accomplishment washed over us. It had been an exhausting few days leading up to this moment, but we stuck together, worked as a team, and got it done. It is really exciting that this part of the build is complete. It was a pain in the butt, but now we can really start building. And we've overbuilt this foundation so much that, you know, we can just keep building up and up and up. It's gonna be solid, so that's fun. So we gotta let this concrete settle up for a few days, and then we're gonna start building a house. Fun times. Thanks for watching.